The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the express written consent of Spaced Out Radio or Spaced Out Radio Limited is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised. Are you experienced?
Stop right there!
From high atop the mountains of British Columbia to you listening around the world, this is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
They let us play with all our toys, they let us think that we're big boys, they let us make a lot of noise, but women rule the world. They let us think we're Superman.
You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, on iTunes and TuneIn. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show, or on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show.
I try to act so cool, but you know I'm just a fool for you. I will stop till I reach the top just to be there with you.
Dave, oh Dave, are you playing with Bigfoot and aliens again?
Dad, you gotta stop haunting the ghosts. It's scaring them.
All right, seriously, put down the pointy sticks.
Oh, the deeper I fall.
Okay! Game on! Game on! Game on!
The password is...
All right.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride on Spaced Out Radio. Mr. Bumblefoot, Dave is ready for liftoff.
I try to act so cool, but you know I'm just a fool for you.
Seriously, Dave? Really? Aren't you a little old for a tinfoil hat?
Hello, Toby. Bye-bye. Nephew. Bye-bye.
Yeah, please take your seat about there. We'll let the edge. It's time for pickup. Start. 2, 1. Boost to ignition and lift off.
I'm such a lucky guy, 'cause after all this time, it's like the deeper I go, the deeper I fall. The deeper I go, the
Good evening and welcome to a new week of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. It's great to have you along for the ride on this Monday, July 31st, Tuesday, August 1st. If you're on the East Coast or across the pond, hope you had a great day and night. We are live right here in the Great White North on top of the Smoky Mountains of central British Columbia as we are here 7 days a week. We welcome in everyone listening in on our terrestrial stations, WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Newnan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network on 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. We are also live at spacedoutradio.com, Spreaker, KTLK, The Fringe FM, Renegade Talk Radio out of Las Vegas, the High Plains Talk Radio Network, and if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station funded by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. Horns up if you love our music by the guitar god himself, Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal, formerly of Guns N' Roses, currently of Art of Anarchy. Bumblefoot is the official sound of Spaced Out Radio. You can follow us all over social media, starting on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, you can follow me at Dave Scott, SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download our shows from iTunes. We're also on Player.fm, RadioGuide.fm, TalkStream Live, Stitcher, and iHeartRadio out of the United States. And if you go to our website, once again, it's spacedoutradio.com. Head over to patreon.com. For as low as $1 a month, you can become a patron of SOR as well. Now, if you want to take part in tonight's show, you got to do me a favor. You got to sign up for one of our chat rooms. You either go on Spreaker, Revolution Radio, UPRN, or on Facebook, ask to join the Spaced Out Radio SOR Space Travelers Club. Or if you're on Twitter, use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio. I will get to your questions and comments there as well. Now, if you head to our website for just $5 a month, you can become an SOR Space Traveler. And as of right now, go to our store, pick up a t-shirt, poster, stickers. We have the Encounter online dealing with everything paranormal, courtesy of our editors, Eric Markham and Everett Thiemer. You can check out my latest blog there as well about coming home from evacuation. And if you've ever had an experience you can't explain, do me a favor, fill out an SOR Sightlines report. Tim Doyle from UFO Seekers and Leslie Mitchell Clark's Contact TV also have some great video viewing as well. The final Monday of the month means it's time for Strange Days with crypto investigator Butch Witkowski from UFOcop.com. Butch is a regular around these parts and a veteran investigator who tends to be a leader in trying to figure out what is going on in this world that isn't supposed to exist. From phantoms flying around Chicago to UFOs in the skies and every paranormal creature and ghost in between, there isn't anything Butch and his team won't investigate. It's the thrill of the hunt and the unknown that keeps him going. After all, the experiences people are having are real. But what's real about them is the real mystery that Butch likes to figure out. It's like trying to solve a puzzle with hundreds of missing pieces. You're so close, yet so far away. Butch Witkowski, welcome back to Spaced Out Radio, my friend. How are you?
I'm fine, Dave. How are you doing?
Not too bad at all. I had a fantastic week last week, had a great weekend, coming out of the shot and out of the gates here, shooting fast. I'm doing great today. How are you?
Busy.
Yeah, I can tell. Butch, in the intro, I mentioned how, it's like trying to solve these mysteries is like trying to put together a puzzle, yet you're missing, say out of a 1,000-piece puzzle, you're missing 300 pieces. Is that how investigations of the cryptids and the unknown works for you?
Oh, yeah. Sometimes that's putting it mildly. It just seems like, just since the last time we talked, I mean, UFO sightings, these Chicago flying phantoms, everything is just going nuts all over the country. I mean, they're chasing around Rougarou down in Louisiana. Rougarou is the southern answer to the northern bipedal canine, or wolfman.
So why do it? Why waste the time, Butch?
Oh, just to find out if it's true. I mean, truth is the most important thing in the investigation. I mean, granted, I've been lied to a few times, more than I can count. But there are just those stories and sightings and reports that just pin your ears back. They sit you back in your chair and you just keep staring at it and you keep reading it. And it sort of makes sense. Then again, it doesn't make any sense. And then you'll start looking at it and researching, and you'll find out that maybe in that particular area of the sighting or report, there was something maybe a couple of years ago, maybe 30 years ago, 50 years ago. And it's just a reigniting flame that just keeps you going.
We're very conscious about igniting flames around here right now, my friend.
Oh, I bet you are. Boy, I watched as much as I could on what they were showing. I mean, what they would show here in the States. And, I mean, it was devastating. And I had a bunch of people asking me how you were doing. I was giving update reports from what I'd get off of you to investigators here in the States. And
thank you.
It was, I mean, you know, we've had our share of them here, especially in California. I guess they've still got one going out there. And I've seen one in Arizona, and they are at night on the mountain where it's just scrub brush. You know, they don't have big trees out there. They don't have any big trees out there. But, you know, little scrub brush. It looked like a million dancing little lights on a hill. And it was, you know, really nice. And then, you know, pretty is what it looked like. And then my wife said to me one night, she said, "Can you imagine if those were pine trees?" I said, "Yeah, we'd be leaving."
Trust me. You know, I can tell you this, Butch. I learned late last week, one of the guys I work with in my daytime career, he is a volunteer fire department or assistant captain of the volunteer fire department in my area, in the 108 Mile Ranch area. And you haven't heard this story. A few people have. And so I'll just fill you in. When the fire came up the hill into the 108 Mile Ranch area, it burned down 2 houses. And literally it started, it jumped across the street. So the street is called Block Drive. It jumped across the street. And the firefighters were putting so much water on the fire that jumped. And it was so hot, the hottest recorded fire in British Columbia history, number 1. And number 2, the flames were so hot that they could not get them out with the amount of water they were putting on. And up in the air, when you have a firefighter or forest fire going on, there is a helicopter with a spotter, and this is a person who's literally, their job is to watch the direction of the forest fires. And they figured that if they could not get those flames out within 10 to 30 minutes, they would have had to sacrifice the entire 108 area. They would have pulled every firefighter out of there. It was raging so bad. And wow. And all of a sudden, and I'm going to call it the hand of God. You know what? If you believe or not, that's up to you, anybody listening, okay? But the way my friend Terry put it to me was, it was like the hand of God all of a sudden just grabbed a hold of the wind and absolutely turned it 180, and the wind all of a sudden started shifting left very, very heavily, and all the flames blew back on themselves.
Wow.
And we were within minutes. Now, where that fire came up was about 3 miles from my house. But the fire at that time, I believe, was moving at about 3 miles an hour. That's how fast it was burning.
Wow.
So, literally, they came down to minutes of fully evacuating the firefighters from the 108 Mile Ranch area. Now, we're not out of the woods just yet, no pun intended. There is another fire now coming north. It's about 40 miles from us right now. It's causing evacuations all over the place, and this thing's uncontrollable. Like, we are being hit left, right, and center. One of the escape routes on Highway 97 is blocked again, and the fire is so wide that it's almost going to be blocking another exit here soon. So we have no way of getting south if that fire takes that second highway.
Wow. Well, you know, there's the when I was a very young man, when I say very young, in my teens, a mountain behind our home caught fire, and it was heading down toward the houses. And just like that, the wind shifted, of course, and started going in another direction. So they were calling for any volunteer who could. So, you know, all the young guys, we got Indian cans and axes and whatever, and we were up there doing whatever we could do at the direction of the firefighters. And I was about maybe 50 yards away from a pine tree that exploded. I was never involved in anything. I wasn't a firefighter. My son was a fire chief for 25 years, but I was never a firefighter. And I saw the fire at the base of the pine tree, and there was a guy heading toward it to, put some water on it. And all of a sudden, he just turned around and started running, and he ran past me, and I just looked at him like, "Where are you going?" And I turned around, and that pine tree went up, and it exploded. It was an explosion. And that thing went from a little fire at the base to a fully engulfed 35, 40-foot pine tree. And I'll tell you what, in the Olympics, I'd be on the cover of Jet magazine because I made it out of there as quick as I could, and then a bunch of other pines caught, and it was uncontrollable. But what happened was it actually ran to a ball field, a big playground, where there are no trees. And it got out of the woods, and it got down in the brush, and it finally burned itself out. But the thing that was really ironic was there were 6 houses in a row. It burned down 5. The one in the middle was never touched. There wasn't so much as a singe mark on it. The other ones were gone. They were down to the ground in a matter of, 30, 40 minutes.
Well, I know up here what they were doing in order to save houses was they were literally taking helicopters with those drop buckets that hold about 600 gallons of water, and they were continually dumping water on top of these houses, and that's how they were able to save some of them. And you know what? The men and women who are still working in the fires right now, man, that is tough work, and they so need to be commended. So need to be commended.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, like I said, I was a teenager, and I was just carrying around this can of water on my back with a nozzle thingy. And I want to tell you, by the 6 hours I spent on that hill, when I got down there, I think I slept for 2 days. I was just gone. There was nothing I could do. I didn't eat. I just laid there and slept. I don't see how they do it. That horrendous heat. Not knowing what's going to turn on you at any time because you can't, there's no control over it. The little bit of control they get on those things are just. And then when you hear firefighters, get caught and loss of life and stuff like that, or like that fire that was overseas not too long ago where the people were trying to beat the fire out, get out of town before the fire, and they just got burned right on the roads.
Yeah.
Just incinerated them.
Well, you know what? Fire is dangerous, man. And I realize that I say that very lightly, but, it has made me so skittish. Like last night, I was outside at about 12:30, and what brought me outside was the wind. And it's amazing when you're in a fire situation how much you start to watch the wind. Which way is it going? How hard is it going? It's amazing. You become amateur meteorologists, trying to predict everything. And like I watched my buddy Tony today, my neighbor across the street, who's a firefighter, and as I was coming home from my daytime job, all of a sudden here he is running to his truck. He doesn't even have a shirt on. He was just trying to take a shower when his pager went off because there's flare-ups everywhere. There was, I think, 3 or 4 flare-ups in our area today. And what people have to realize, Butch, is they are actually saying that this fire was so hot, it's actually still burning about 18 inches to 2 feet underground. It is burning the roots. And the roots are like candlesticks. And now what's going to happen is this is going to burn for months, and there's going to be flare-ups. And we're not getting any rain. And this week is supposed to get very hot, or up here it would be considered hot. It's going to be around 95 to 100 degrees up here this week. Which, yeah, like we need that anymore. But the whole point is, these roots are burning, and they will continue burning underground for months because there's oxygen getting into the ground one way or another. And then When the snow comes this year, what's it going to do? It's going to insulate that heat. So next year, if we have a dry spring and fall again, guess what flares up? All these forest fires that are burning underground right now. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing how nature works.
No, it's scary how nature works. Like I said, I only saw that one that I was up close and personal involved in. I don't ever want to see one of those again. That was just to see how fast it moves. Like from one ridge line to another in a matter of two or 3 minutes. I mean, you're looking at a totally green area and an area that's on fire, and then you turn your head for a couple minutes, you turn back, and that green area is now fully engulfed. Yes. And you're like, this is nuts.
Well, up in Williams Lake, where the mighty Fraser River runs, and in this area, the river is about a mile wide. Okay, that's pretty wide. Would you agree?
Yes.
The flames from the hillside, when the wind picked up, it blew the pieces of charcoal and burning trees into the atmosphere, landed a mile away on the other embankment, and started a forest fire there.
Oh, jeez.
A mile over water. So it's just absolutely devastating. And to see entire mountainsides. Now, I know Joe in California here, he's going through wildfire season. He's right in Northern California, where they get it just as bad as we do. But in British Columbia, we get a lot of forest fires. We've never had them this bad before and this big. This is just horrendous. And, it's scary, and it's hard to calm down. That's the problem. Like in our town, we have 3 old mills. The fire is encroaching number 1. The previous fire that they just got contained was approaching the other 2. If 1 or 2 of those mills burn down, our town is dead. It literally is dead, because those are the major suppliers for work in our area. And if all of a sudden and it's already been announced that if anything happened to those mills, they weren't rebuilding them. You're looking at hundreds of people out of work with families. What do they do now? They got to move. Real estate prices go down. Businesses start to close shop, and it kills a town. And that's the big fear around here right now.
Yeah, well, it's amazing how these disasters. Did they ever figure out how this started? How the first one started?
Yes.
Was it a strike or?
No, there was somebody camping in the wilderness who had a fire going, and because of the dry conditions, that person has never been found. And because of the dry conditions, well, I guess something happened where a spark flew out of the fire and caught onto some grass, and, well, Bob's your uncle. And within 2 hours of that going, it went from 2 hectares. So a hectare is just a little bit bigger than an American football field. Mm-hmm. It's about 1 1/4 NFL-size fields. So it went from 2 hectares to 50 hectares within 2 hours. They immediately called in the water bombers. By that afternoon on day 1, it was around 200 hectares. The fire that is now burning below us, last I heard, it was the size of about 60,000 football fields. That's big.
That's nuts.
That's big. So that's kind of the way it is right now. It's just all over the place, and it just seems like no matter where you're turning, there's forest fires somewhere. And watching entire mountainsides burn, that is scary to watch.
Well, it's just it sets you back where you're thinking how things can go wrong, or in the paranormal 40 searches and research. And and you think about something like this or a flood, and you go like, wow, it doesn't mean anything. I mean, I don't care what kind of research you're doing. When you see the devastation of a fire or a flood, and I've seen the flood twice now. I helped empty my buddy's house out. He only lived about 150 yards from a river, and a bunch of us went down there in trucks. We emptied the house from basement to the ceiling and the third floor in a matter of an hour and got everything out. And 15 minutes after the last truck pulled away, the house just went into the river and just floated away.
Scary. Would you sooner deal with fire or would you sooner deal with a flood?
I'd rather deal with none of them. I mean, they're just, water, fire you can eventually stop, eventually. Water, ain't no stopping water. You sure as hell ain't going to build a dike around your house or a dam. I mean, it just takes everything away. There were 8 houses on that block. 6 we watched just get lit. The water just lifted them up off the foundations, floated them out into the middle, and just down the river they went till they were out of sight. Then when they hit the bridge, well, then they're done. But after it was over, you really realized how much devastation. Because we went back to his house, and they did rebuild, but they a little further away on the property. And but whole businesses were underwater. A truck rental company which just got in 35 brand new tractors, Freightliner tractors. The only thing you saw on them were the stacks. Totally underwater. The garage was underwater. Everything was underwater. I mean, water came up into the streets, into the city, almost 8 blocks. And, city homes aren't built like on stilts. Now, the ones that were up on the hills, they didn't get touched, but the ones that were down on the low streets, they had water up into their second floors. And, a lot of these areas that were hit, I mean, there's no way these people can afford to do that. So a lot of the stuff got knocked down and rebuilt by the government and, that kind of stuff. But now, disasters are just, I don't care what it is, fire, water, wind. It's just, I don't know what it is. It's just terrible. I even, even a lot of times when I see it on the news, I'll look to see if anybody was hurt or anything like that, or anybody I know is in that area, and I'll just bypass it. I can't even look at it anymore. I mean, you can watch somebody's whole life go up in a matter of seconds, or they can lose their life in a matter of seconds. But
we got to cheer this thing up, man. We got to cheer this thing up.
Yeah, you got that right.
Yeah.
Well, let's get to the Chicago Flying Phantoms, okay?
Sure. Chicago Flying Phantoms. What's new there?
Okay, what's new there is 2 reports back. 2 police officers spotted this thing on a roof. Actually, they were driving down on patrol. A group of people stopped them and said, look, they got out of the cars, they got their flashlights out, they looked up on the roof, up on a building, a 3 or 4 story building, and they saw this winged creature standing there, and up and away it went, but they filed a police report, and the guy said he filed a police report. And so, of course, the researchers out there all filed FOIA requests to get a copy of the report, right? And the response from the Chicago Police Department was, we don't have any report like that.
What do you mean they don't have a report like that if they filed the report?
Yeah. 2 officers filed a report with witnesses. Like I said, a group of people flagged them down. They got witnesses. They got all that stuff. And the researchers that are working those cases out there filed the FOIA reports, and they got absolutely no response other than there was no report found or filed. Now, that tells me that they know there's something out there that they would rather not talk about. When you put a FOIA request in, I can't remember how many of those I put in my time, but, if you get an answer back right away, they'll say, okay, well, you need to refile it, or here's the information you requested. But then you always get the one where you get it back where the FOIA request says, well, your spelling isn't right. We don't know what you mean. What? My spelling isn't right? Or your punctuation, we're not sure what you mean. And then they string you along till you just stop doing it. But the actual them saying no police report was found tells me that they know there's something up there flying around. And the cases are still happening. Nobody knows what they are. The descriptions are pretty much the same. 7 foot tall, maybe 8 foot tall, winged being, humanoid looking, that's either flying or up on top of a building or perched somewhere. Only, I believe, the first one, I believe, was seen on the ground, but the minute the lady and her dog startled it, it just up and away. And, then you have all the people from the Mothman era all trying to put those two together. But this is different. This isn't like the Mothman. They're actually seeing a head, a head, where with the Mothman, the head was actually no neck. It was kind of, the shoulders went right into the head, face, eyes type thing. And, but everything's going nuts right now. UFO sightings, Bigfoot reports, Rougarou in Louisiana. It's just like in just the last 35, 45 days. It's just going wild. And the Rougarou sighting down in Louisiana, gentleman raises hogs, farm hogs, and he also raises chickens. And he came home from his trip in town to get some feed and stuff, and everything was fine when he left. And when he came back, the chicken house, not a coop, it was, the larger chicken coops, houses they call them, was totally destroyed. Every chicken was just ripped to shreds. And there were signs of the fencing, pretty heavy-duty fencing, because of the hogs, was being pulled away from where it was attached. And they found like strange footprints, and they found some hair, which they say they had, and I don't know this for a fact, but they say they had it checked, and it comes up to an unknown canine. And we've heard that before, though, with hair on these in the Rougarous. And the Rougarou is the only bipedal that has actually been blamed for deaths in the bayou. But, in the bayou, pretty much everything can kill you there. Snakes, bugs, alligators, pretty much anything that can get to you will kill you. And, but that just lit up all over again. That was quiet for quite a few years. I haven't heard a Rougarou investigation for at least 5 or 6 years. And then this one popped up, and there's like 2 or 3 investigative teams down there running around the swamps looking for this thing. And then up around Baton Rouge, and Baton Rouge is like any place else in the country down here. There's a lot of coyotes, but now they're getting large wolves in the Baton Rouge area, which is about 250 miles from the bayou area, the swamp area. And these, they already know that the wolves have already mated with the coyotes, so you got coy wolves. But it's strange that we're talking about animals that actually came from Canada. And now
sure, blame us.
The gray wolf we've had in this, in the upper states for years and years and years, and out in the western states for years. But to get down south where they are, Louisiana, Mississippi, and coy wolves they don't have any fear of humans. They really don't. A coyote does. I mean, you can, when we first moved out to Arizona, we were pulling up with the moving truck, and my wife was driving our Suburban, and she stopped and she got out of the car and walked back to the truck. She looks up at me, she says, "What the hell is laying on the doorstep under the patio overhead roof of the front door?" And I said, "I don't see anything." And she says, "Get out of the truck and look." So I got out of the truck. I walked around the side of the truck. There was 2 coyotes sleeping. They were just sleeping. I mean, I'm sitting there in a big diesel truck. They're not moving. I'm only 25 feet away from them. So I clapped my hands twice. They woke up. I clapped again and yelled at them, and they took off into the brush, into the desert. So they're not like a coy wolf. The coy wolf has that wolf mentality. And when you're talking about Baton Rouge and having coy wolves running around Baton Rouge, I mean, even in the bayou areas, they're very close to inhabited areas where there's a lot of people. And, I'm just waiting now for one of these reports to show up where one of them got onto a playground or into a house or something like that and grabbed a kid. But they're bad business. But to have them down that far south is very strange, very strange.
Gloria wants to know, because she lives in Louisiana, whereabouts the sightings of the Rougarou are.
The sightings of the Rougarou are about 200 to 225 miles, the way it was explained to me, from Baton Rouge into the bayou, down toward the way southern end of the state. And that's where the incident took place at the hog farm with the chickens. And another report that came out not too long ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, where a guy was raising hunting dogs, these big beagles they use down there for hunting coon and stuff. And 3 of those dogs just turned up missing. They're just gone. So it's very possible they got coy wolves or they got a wolf itself in that area.
Getting back to the Chicago phantoms that are happening there, Butch, I'm wondering, how often are these sightings happening? And who is seeing these?
Well, individuals and a group that was on a vacation tour in Chicago, out by a museum. They're almost all, with the exception of 2 or 3 off the top of my head, that are multi-witness. And they're very silent. There's no noise. They're not fast. Now, tonight, I understand, and I haven't gotten a chance to even look at that yet, I think a group of young guys got a photograph or a video. Now, I don't know how factual that is until investigators get there and actually see the video or grab the pictures. But it's bizarre. It's just bizarre. And these things are almost always seen over the water because, you have the lake there and you have 2 major airports. So they're flying in and out of restricted airspace. Then you got the 2 police officers, no report found. It's just weird. I mean, these people are almost describing pterodactyls, plesiosaurs that are flying without the beak and the long tail. Some say bat-like wings, some say bird-like wings. There are no bats that big in this country. The biggest bat in the world lives in South America somewhere in the middle of nowhere. And their wingspan is 6 foot, and their body is about 2.5 foot. These things, the body's 7 foot, and the wingspans are like 10 to 12 foot. So, what they are, I mean, I really don't have any idea.
Butch, have you found any sort of pattern whatsoever with these sightings that are going on?
they've investigators out there actually drew a pattern map for the investigative team. It doesn't show any pattern other than back and forth, but it is in a very contained area. And when I say contained, Chicago is a very big city. So if you're looking at a street map, you're probably looking at maybe 35, 40 block area. They're always seen near water, which is kind of weird too. I mean, these investigators out there, they're looking under bridges. I mean, they're doing everything. I admire them because there's quite a group of them out there doing this, and they're all seasoned investigators. And, when I heard the first one, I didn't really think much about it. The second, third, maybe the fourth one, I really started getting a bad feeling about it. Like, what are we dealing with here? I mean, this thing is showing up like in this specific area. Then I thought about the Harbinger effect. Is something bad going to happen? It was seen sitting on the old Sears Tower. I don't know. And then when you think about Chicago is actually built on a swamp. It was actually built on water. It was just, that whole city is just kind of sitting on a swamp. Pretty much like most of Florida. And could something bad, could this be, a premonition of something that's going to happen? Who knows? You just don't know. There's not really been a good photograph taken. There have been some drawings. I mean, witnesses have made some drawings. But, not everybody's an artist, so instead of looking at some wild-looking creature, you're getting a picture of kind of like a sparrow or something. But they're very large, and they're not very high in the sky either. I mean, they're not like 15,000 feet or anything like that. These things are just a few hundred feet off the water or overhead. And none of those guys out there, nor anybody that I know of that I've been talking to about it, really has an idea what they are. Could they, and where they come from? They just started showing up. I mean, is there, I've heard the story of, could it be a parallel universe? Could it be a portal? Could there be an opening somewhere? Will they disappear as quick as they appeared? I mean, just so many questions. Are they UFO related? But that's another thing. UFO reports over Chicago are nil. There are none. So, unlike the group that tries to put Bigfoot and UFOs in the same category, they're not seeing any of that out there at all.
Now, when we think about this phantom or this newfangled Mothman, whatever we want to call it, are there any similarities to this modern-day Mothman to the Point Pleasant one from the 1960s?
I think the only thing that you could say is that when it's seen, other than when it's flying, it is seen perched, where the Mothman was seen on a couple of occasions where it was just perched on a building or, an overhang of some sort, or a roof. A lot of the reports of Mothman had him standing in the middle of the road, and then he just rose up and took off, or he was flying alongside a car or behind a car or something like that, trying to chase people down. This thing is always aloft. It's only, like I said, it's only been seen perched, I think 3 or 4 times, and on a building, and one time on the ground in a park, a local park where you walk your dog, jog, that kind of stuff. But just the fact that they're multi-witness sightings, you have very few single sightings. And the newspapers aren't putting anything out other than one guy, I believe it was last week, put out a half a column on the sightings of what people said they were seeing, and that was it. And now, so they're not doing anything, nothing on radio, nothing on TV, no news media of any type. And then, of course, then you got the police, where the police officers say they filed a report, and then the police department saying, no, there was no report ever filed. But to say that, you know, you got 8 or 10 people that stop a police car and show them what's up on the roof, and the police officers see it and they file a report, and then the police department says, nah, it never happened. That just tells you something right there, that something did happen. They just don't want to cause panic or, you know, put anything out like that. It's bizarre. It really is bizarre. Nobody has any idea what it is. There's crypto guys working on this pretty much all over the country, trying to figure out what it is. And they're all coming up with the same thing. Zip, nada, nothing.
Getting back to the police and the report that was filed and is now being said it isn't filed. This isn't new to Chicago. We remember about a decade ago or more the famous UFO sightings over O'Hare International that were all over the media.
Well, this last sighting was only a couple miles from that sighting.
So why the change in attitude, do you think?
I don't know. I really don't. The only thing I can think of is, you know, they don't want to stir up the folks or get everybody crazy or, you know, jumping around yelling at each other and screaming at the police and why aren't you doing this, why aren't you doing that? But it's this whole case, and I'm going to classify it all as one, but this whole thing is just so weird, so out of sync. I mean, nothing makes any sense. I mean, all these people that I don't know how, I think they got 23 reports now. I'm pretty sure it's 23 reports. And the last one is on the Tri-State Tollway around, I believe it's West 109th Street. Now, you know, it's right south of Bridgeview, Illinois. But most of the sightings have taken place on the north side, Hyde Park area, you know, right along the lake. And it's one of these things where, I mean, even investigators on their websites and stuff are putting out things for people to help them, you know, you seen anything or you heard anything. But the majority of them, right along the water. Right along the water. So what has water got to do with this? And then the couple spots where they aren't near the lake, they are near water of some type, either, you know, a pond or a park area where there's water. But up around that Cicero area, it's loaded.
Gloria is asking about the gargoyle-like sightings that have been popping up as well.
Yeah, well, that's another thing too. You know, you got these reports of gargoyles. Well, gargoyles were actually protectors. I mean, that's why they were put on churches, buildings, courthouses. They were actually put up to scare off evil spirits. But I think what's happening with those couple gargoyle reports that recently came out, they're misconstruing those with these large bat-like humanoids that are flying around the north side of Chicago. And it's just another one, you know. I think the furthest that they got away, I think they get down in the Bedford Park area was one. I think that was the very first one. and then they kind of moved over to Hyde Park and up along the lake, the little village in that area. But it's what are we talking about here? Is it a man bat, an owl man, moth man, flying humanoid? I mean, nobody knows what it is. I mean, no photographs, and the drawings, the couple sketches that were given are all totally different. I said most of them look like birds, but birds aren't that big. And the ones that came up close and personal, like that group that was at the pier at the museum, there was a tour group. I mean, it wasn't just one person. There was quite a few people there that saw this. I don't know. I really don't know, Dave. I pick up on the investigation what's sent to me, for any ideas I would have, but to be honest, I don't really have any ideas. It's, you got some kind of humanoid with large wings flying around over Chicago. The furthest out it's gone is out off of Highway 290 in the Oak Park area. That's the furthest it's gone that way. And when you look at a map of them, and people can see the map if they go to Phantoms and Monsters and look up the Chicago Phantom. There's a map there that they can blow up and they can look, and he has them all marked exactly where they took place. And I'm sorry, I said 23. There are 26 of them right now. He added some tonight. So now the one tonight, and I didn't read that report totally, but this is Chicago Ridge area, and a gentleman said that on February 8th, 2017, on I-94 near 111th Street, at 1 a.m. Central Time, he was driving home at night southbound on I-294, the Tri-State Tollway, and he saw what he thought was a person running on two legs across the highway that shapeshifted into a giant black bird and flew up and away. A witness was known to be an intense skeptic of the paranormal. According to his wife, he didn't believe any of that stuff. He compared it to flying like a description of the Mothman after he did an online search. The wife said, my husband doesn't believe in that stuff like this, and when he got home, he was white as a ghost and goosebumps everywhere, and if anyone else had told him that what he saw, he wouldn't have believed it. But he said what he saw was there. He knew it was true.
We only have a couple minutes here, Butch, before we got to go to our first break of the night, about 3.5 minutes. Do you expect these sightings in Chicago to continue going on?
Yeah, I do. And I do because, when the first one came out and the second one came out, they were kind of further apart from each other. And I thought, well, something just misidentified, okay? And, might have been a heron flying over or, a large seabird of some sort. But then when 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, you know what I mean? They just kept climbing. And now it's up to 26. There's something flying up there. And it's not natural. It's not something that we would recognize as something, like an eagle or a hawk or a large bird of some sort. This is different. This is like I said, after the fourth or fifth report, I just had a bad feeling about it. I just thought there's something not right here. I don't usually get that way, but when I started reading these reports, I thought, these people are seeing what some call an owl man, some call a mothman, some call it a man bat, some call it a flying humanoid, etc. But they're seeing something, and those descriptions of owl man, mothman, batman, flying humanoids, if you look them all up, they're pretty much all the same. Large, humanoid-looking. You can see legs. You can see large wings. There is a head, maybe a neck area. So what they're seeing, I haven't got a clue. But it's scary enough. And I'm certainly not going to Chicago.
Do you really believe in about 90 seconds that it is another harbinger of doom here?
My feeling? My personal feeling, yes. I just got a bad feeling about this whole thing. I don't know what it is, but just a bad feeling. Could be nothing. Could be a big owl, who knows, but I just don't feel good about this whole thing. It's too concentrated. Now, if these things were all over Illinois or all over Chicago, that's one thing, but these things are pretty much stand between the 95 and the 90 corridor, right along the lake. And that's, although it's a pretty good distance, it's still very, very close.
We only got about 30 seconds here before we go to break, Butch, so I'm going to get you to hold on here and just chill out, relax. You could start your break early. I'll just do the yapping for now until we go to break. Butch Witkowski comes on this show the final Monday of every month. His next appearance will be Monday, August 28th. Cannot believe we're starting August already. It's unbelievable. Butch's show called Strange Days Around These Parts. He's from UFOcorp.com. That's UFOcorp.com. And you're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. We'll be back right after this.
365 days a year, we're in the field, investigating UFO sightings, talking to alien abductees, and visiting secret military locations like Area 51. We're UFO Seekers, official partner of Spaced Out Radio. Follow our daily search for the truth at ufoseekers.com or like us on social media. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
From coast to coast to coast, Blacklight Uncharted is taking on the paranormal across Canada. From ghostly hauntings to the UFOs flying above in conjunction with MUFON Canada, we're closely investigating what's going on in the northern skies and checking out the apparitions that walk among us. Check out our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com. We want to know your thoughts, we want to hear your experiences, and we want you to share your stories. The answers are out there, and we intend to find them.
Would you like to become one of our space travelers? All you have to do is click on the Space Travelers icon at spacedoutradio.com. For only $5 a month, you can get access to some great prizes, as well as private monthly shows, newsletters, and a members-only section on our website. Become a space traveler today.
It's paranormal news at its finest. Welcome to The Encounter. At spacedoutradio.com, The Encounter online is SOR's trusted news source for everything weird and strange going on around the world. This is news editor Eric Markham. Our team of journalists are scouring the planet for those strange stories that rarely make the mainstream. No fear-mongering or fake news here. Head over to spacedoutradio.com and encounter The Encounter.
Want to learn more about aliens, cover-ups, conspiracies, cryptids, and the paranormal? All you have to do is tune in S4 as we take over the Spaced Out Radio night, starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, each and every Saturday night, right after Spaced Out Saturdays. Hi there, this is Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. Join me, Corey Ruiz, and friends as we discuss the hot topics of the night. It's fun, entertaining, and as dark as the night. Find us at spacedoutradio.com.
Hey, this is Canadian Paranormal Investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
Are you an experiencer? Have you had run-ins with strange creatures you can't explain? ETs, Dogman, Bigfoot, werewolves? They're enough to scare the daylights out of anyone. Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski from UFO Corp. And on the last Monday of every month, you can listen to me and the host, Dave Scott, talk about the weird and the strange being reported on Spaced Out Radio. I'm going to bring my investigations and sources, you bring your experiences, and we'll figure out the rest together. Strange Days on Spaced Out Radio. Come tune us in at spacedoutradio.com.
Have you had an experience you can't explain? Had a run-in with ghosts, maybe Bigfoot, or seen lights in the sky? Hi, I'm Mike Schmidt from the SOR Sightlines. I'm here to investigate your sighting. Head to spacedoutradio.com and fill out a report on the sight lines. All your information is 100% confidential, and I will help you figure out what you've been seeing. File your report, and let's find out the answers together.
Psychic Sundays, spiritual communication, ET contact, Sasquatch in your backyard. We will have it all on Cosmic Passport with me, Elizabeth Anglin. Each Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, at spacedoutradio.com, I will take you on a journey of enlightenment. The goal is learning from the soul on out. We'd love it if you joined our experience. Cosmic Passport, heard Sundays at spacedoutradio.com.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
From British Columbia to Northern California, Pacific North Weird has Cascadia covered. Check out our feature videos at spacedoutradio.com, where I, Vincent Zunza, and my super sleuth partner Alexandra Sullivan track down the weird and strange stories from around the Pacific Northwest, from Bigfoot to Mel's Hole and everything in between. This is what makes life exciting. So why report the normal when we can report the Pacific North Weird right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
Welcome to Spaced Out Saturdays with me, Dave Cruz from Beyond the Strange. Our weekly feature on spacedoutradio.com will take you around the world discussing everything from the paranormal to the latest conspiracies from the top guests in their fields. We won't leave any story uncovered. Spaced Out Saturdays at spacedoutradio.com starting 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag SpacedOutRadio. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Welcome back to Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Good to have you with us. Tomorrow night on the program, we kick off August with Elizabeth April. She comes in the first Tuesday of every month, and she comes in, hangs out, opens up with The Spiritual You, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noon in Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network on 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. Good to have you with us. We are also live on KTLK, The Fringe FM, Renegade Talk Radio out of Las Vegas. And if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Gigantomachy. Gigantomachy is your password. If you want to use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets a password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow me on social media, you can do so on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio if you want to connect with me live during the show as well. You can give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can also tune us in on iTunes, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, And our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including our Spaced Out Radio store, where we have pictures, posters, stickers. You can also join up on the SOR Space Travelers Club for $5 a month. Read up on the Encounter online. Check out Contact TV and UFO Seekers, and so much more. Everything at spacedoutradio.com. Tonight from UFOcop.com, Butch Witkowski's Strange Days. It happens the final Monday of every month, where we talk everything to do with cryptids, strange encounters, and so on. Butch, welcome back.
I'm here.
Well, we're glad you are. We're glad you are, because we couldn't really do this show without you.
You have to change the name, I guess, right?
Exactly. Hey, I got a couple questions from our audience. This one coming from Milo. Milo was asking, Butch, do you think there are several Mothmen or just the same one moving around Chicago?
In one report, 2 were seen at the same time, flying together. So, but every other report only is 1 seen flying. But in that one report, there were 2 seen flying side by side.
That's pretty scary, having 2 of them. Not fun at all. Not fun at all.
And it was the only time the 2 were ever reported together or seen together. And another thing is that, I mean, it's not close, like they see one at 8 o'clock at night, they see one at 10:30. Now, these are days apart, in a couple cases, a week or so apart. But again, in that same area. It just seems that they stay in that same area. Why, I have no clue. I just really have no clue.
Let's get to the next question. This one coming from Ron in the SOR Space Travelers Club. He says, Sunday night, where we were sitting by a campfire watching a movie, the International Space Station was about to fly by. We were watching the Leonid meteor shower. I looked up west to east, a super high-speed object bouncing off the sun as it flew by. We thought it was the ISS. It wasn't a couple minutes later, the ISS tracked directly over us in full clear view. The ISS flew at a slower speed than the first object. They tracked in the same orbit. What could the first object be? Not sure if it's a meteorite or if it was metallic or occasionally visible.
I wouldn't go with a meteor. I would just from what you said, I would classify it as unidentified, because the ISS, you can get on NASA's site and they'll show you the tracking. You can go, if it's in your area, you can go outside and you can watch it, and it's not moving fast. It's a slow walker. It's just going along its way. Now it's going at a high speed, but to you or me looking at it, I mean, it's moving very slowly. Anything going faster than that is not something we have, and a meteor wouldn't be up that high. Wouldn't be in that orbit.
Do you think it could have been space junk flying by, considering that if the sun is still visible, the sun would reflect off of any metal?
Yeah, that's possible, but the orbit that the ISS is in pretty much keeps them out of the debris field. If it didn't, they'd be getting hit with debris every 10 minutes. And I think the whole time it's been up there, it was only struck once. There have been a huge number of UFO sightings recently. One that I just got yesterday here in Pennsylvania was a gentleman sitting on his front porch, and he said one of the very few clear nights we had, and on the county would be eastern Pennsylvania, northeastern Pennsylvania, and he was watching an object that he said just pretty much came out of nowhere, going east to west. He said he couldn't define the shape. All he could say was it was an extremely bright white light, and it was zigzagging, and it would drop, and it would go up, and it would drop, and it would, continue zigzagging and go up and drop, and just very erratic in its trajectory. And it was in sight for about 4 or 5 minutes that he could see it. Older gentleman, doesn't own a camera, doesn't have pair of binoculars or anything like that. He was just amazed at what he saw. And then about 2 hours later, I got a second report from north central Pennsylvania, exactly the same of what he saw, doing exactly the same maneuver of zigzagging and going up and dropping down and going left and right, and and continuing on northwards. And that's like the 5th or 6th sighting like that I've had in 2 months, where a discernible shape could not be given, but the bright white light moving very erratically, zigzagging, dropping, climbing, with one exception where a gentleman was watching it through binoculars, and his location would have been northwest up along the New York state line, where he said it almost came to a stop, and then he said it just shot straight up, and then he lost it. So I'm not thinking it's an orb, because orbs are mostly colored. They're red or fiery orange or fiery red. The bright white lights, which I witnessed one myself, which was verified by a second sighting of what I saw 72 miles away at the same time. Although I've seen them, I don't have an explanation for them, because you can't see what they are other than a bright white light. It's not a ball, it's not elongated, it's not saucer shaped. There's no shape at all. It's just a very glowing bright white light that does whatever it wants to do. The particular one that we saw the last time when we were out in the field at doing a star watch, and we were standing there with a Pennsylvania State Trooper, we watched it come across the sky, brilliant, clear night, no light pollution at all. We had perfect vision on this thing, zigzagging across the sky, and it stopped, dropped, made like a U, and came back up, and then continued on its way, and then shot straight up. And I was sitting there going like, wow. And the trooper was laughing. I said, what are you laughing about? He said, oh, we see those all the time.
It's never good when the trooper says they've seen them all the time.
Yeah, and he was very nonchalant about it. He kind of like chuckled and said, oh, we see those all the time. I said, really? He said, oh, yeah. He said, especially here. We go to a state park to do our star watches because there's no light pollution whatsoever. We have clear sky, bright, everything. We can see everything going on, and in all directions. And they're kind enough, the state's kind enough to let us go in there, and they lock us in for the night. So that's why we get the troopers or the state park rangers stop by. They say they're there to check on us, but mostly they drink our coffee and eat our sandwiches. It's what these bright lights are, I have no idea. They're not of this planet. There's no way. They move too fast. I mean, you watch these things and they go from horizon to horizon in a matter of, less than 30 seconds. We don't have anything like that. And when they stop, I mean, it's going at that speed. If you stop, they'd have to take you out of that craft with a sponge. So they're up. I mean, UFO sighting, and that's all across the country. Sightings are up. Saucer shapes, elongated, flat, rectangular, orange orbs, triangles, and they're all over the country right now.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a lull for a while there. We weren't getting anything, and checking databases, there were very few reports coming in. And then just all of a sudden, in like the last month and a half, they just started coming in everywhere.
What do you think is the occurrence for that?
I always said that it could be, weather conditions. Like a lot of people say, well, they hide in the clouds. Well, There are more seen when it's not cloudy than when it is cloudy, of course. So, it's summer, winter, fall. Weather has really nothing to do with it. I don't think, because we've seen them in all conditions. We've seen them in snowstorms. The ones that always intrigue me are the ones that are very high in the sky. They look like a pencil point dot, and they're very fast, extremely fast. They've been, some radars clocked them at, 10,000 plus mile per hour. Well, we don't have anything that goes that fast. And, when you see something that's moving that fast across the sky and it stops, and it kind of makes like a U, drops and comes back up again, and then continues on zigzagging across the sky, it's not ours. I mean, we don't have anything like that. Nobody else does either. So whatever that is, it's not from here. And you can't really get them on camera because they move so fast. By the time you point the camera at them, they're at the other end. They've already went past you. They're, who God knows where they went, but they're not there anymore. So what we do now is with wide-angle lens cameras, we just keep them pointed toward the sky and hope that, they run into the camera, into the lens area, which has happened on a couple of occasions. We were lucky, but most often we're not that lucky, because by the time you see it and position a camera, it's way too late. But these bright white lights, they do intrigue me, because those are the ones that are the most active. I mean, you get sightings of triangles, you get sightings of rectangles and orbs and all these other things, but those white lights, they're always there. We always see those. And then what makes them a good case for a UFO is when, like this guy who's in northeastern Pennsylvania, makes his report, and then 2 hours later a guy in north central Pennsylvania sees the same thing. Neither of these guys are investigators. They're not aficionados of the UFO genre. They just watching the sky. And a lot of times it's accidental. My wife and I were driving on Route 222 one time, and it was summertime. It was a very bright, sunny day. And I was watching this object off to my left. And I said to my wife, do you see that? And she said, oh, that silver shiny thing. And I said, yeah. And by the time I said that and looked back, it already had crossed the 4-lane highway and was gone. That was no plane. First of all, it was way too high. And second of all, I didn't see any. I could see what it was. I mean, it was elongated, but I didn't see any tail, empennage, wings, anything like that. I mean, it was just there and gone. And then you have a sighting up on 322 West in Pennsylvania where 3 objects were seen flying near a nuclear plant, and the guy that took the pictures, he took pictures, and you can see all the cars pulled over to the road and everybody out there looking at them. And again, 3 bright white lights. And there must be a dozen cars on either side of the highway that stopped to look at them, but they weren't moving very fast. And although the guy, his camera had the capacity to take video, he didn't. He took still pictures, but he got 3 really good still pictures. And then when they got out of sight, like everybody got in their cars and just went on their way, like it was no big deal. So a lot of it's luck when you see them. If you're set up and watching, and I mean watching, not standing around, doing the marshmallow thing or the hot dog roast or anything like that, but you're watching the skies with binoculars or whatever else you got there, you will see something. You always will see something, even on a bright, starry night. All the stars are kind of stationary, or where they're at. The Earth's moving, but so are you. And then you see something out of the ordinary, which is something moving very fast, very high. And you can only, a lot of times I often try to think, I wonder how big it is. It's so high up there, it looks like a tiny little dot. But if it was down like at 1,500 feet, how big would it be? And sometimes that's a little scary too.
I have a question coming from Raven at hashtag Spaced Out Radio on Twitter. She is asking, Butch, what do you think about the alleged Mothman sighting or Mothman-like sighting in Phoenix? Do you feel they are connected in any way with why no more reports about it from Arizona?
I heard about that. I don't know a lot about that case. I do know that one of the researchers out in Chicago is looking into that, but there have been reports like that also in Northern California and I believe northern New Mexico. And now the one in New Mexico, I believe the guy is thinking or talking more like it was a pterodactyl type of creature, something prehistoric in his description. But look, you see something that big or allegedly that big, and you're going to come up with all kind of stuff, If you saw something big and tall and more than 30 or 40 feet, people would be talking about Godzilla. But there are reports, other than in Chicago. They found one back in 1966 in the Chicago area. They found another one in 2011 in the Chicago area, where there's actually a photograph taken. Now, when you look at the photograph, it does look like what these folks are describing. But what still sticks in my craw is the fact that outside of all these non-investigative types witnesses seeing this, you have two veteran police officers who see this, flash their lights on it, they get a good look at it, they watch it come off that building and fly away. That, to me, lends a lot of credence to, and we know who the police officers are. It's not like they're hidden. We know who they are. So, and the one officer, even in his testimony to the researcher, said, "Look," he said, "I'm a good Christian man." He said, "I don't lie." He said, "I know what I saw. I reported what I saw. This is what the people saw. We saw it. End of story." And so, taking him at his word, he saw something that he couldn't explain. He didn't describe it as a big bird. He didn't describe it as an owl or anything like that. He described it just like everybody else was. It was this large, humanoid-looking, big-winged, 7-8 foot tall, whatever, perched up on that roof ledge. And now I do believe, and I didn't get that report yet, I will be having it later tonight or tomorrow morning, where two other witnesses from that same location, but were across the street, never did talk to the police, saw it before. They saw it in that area before. So I don't know what they saw, but it's a residential street. I mean, it's just like a street anywhere in any part of the United States. You got houses on both sides of the street, you got trees, you got a roadway, you got sidewalks, and it's a decent area of Chicago. And it's just a puzzle to me. I really don't know what it is. I haven't got a clue. I've kind of tossed around all kind of stuff. Is it the return of Mothman? But it doesn't look like Mothman. We're not getting the glowing red eyes, the no-neck looking type of creature where the wings go up over the head area. This is humanoid looking. So anybody's guess is probably as good as mine would be. All I know is the more I read this stuff on these cases and the more I see on these cases, I just don't feel good about this case. It's just something that's it's just not kosher.
Let's get to a couple questions from our chat room in Spreaker. This one coming from Milo. Butch, do you know of reports of UFOs disguised as planes or helicopters morphing into UFOs like shape-shifting?
Oh, yeah. There's been many reports like that over the years, especially airliners. Matter of fact, there was an airliner, now this goes back a ways because it was TWA, Trans World Airlines, and they were going into an airport, I believe, in Michigan or somewhere up in that northern end. And the guy said he saw another plane that was pretty much on the same flight path as he was, coming out of the clouds, and he started to bank to make his turn to hit the runway, to head for the runway, and he looked back, and the plane wasn't there anymore. There was a saucer. And the co-pilot swears by it, and so does the engineer on the plane, and some people that were sitting on that left-hand side of the plane as he made the turn.
I'm surprised they even admitted to that, considering that pilots have been known to get their license revoked or fired from their jobs for that.
Well, there's a trick to that. If they say that while they're in uniform, they're done. If they're not in uniform and not on the job, they can say anything they want to say. That's why you have so many reports from pilots over the years, because, when those cases went to court many years ago, if they were in uniform and they were told not to speak of stuff like that, they get fired instantly. But if they're, more on their lawn and you're questioning them and they tell you what they saw, that's perfectly fine with the airplane people. They don't care, because you're not connecting that uniform to that airline company.
Tim from UFOseekers.com is asking, Butch, what do you carry for self-defense when out in creature-laden areas?
We carry 68 caliber non-lethal weapons, shoot riot balls, and ghost gas.
Why non-lethal? That's so un-American.
Well, look, hopefully we'll just be able to get whatever it is on camera. But, when you're in these large forests we have down here, just like you have them up there, we have bear, we have wolf, we have coyotes, we have coy wolves, we have a lot of stuff that would like to bite you in the ass. So, I'm not out there hunting. If I was hunting, I'd have a .458 Winchester Magnum or one of my pistols. But these weapons are gas-operated. Police use them all the time. You can get different types of ammunition. We use rubber riot balls, and we use nylon balls. Rubber riot ball, they're coming out at about 280 to 340 foot per second. They will hurt you. Hit you in the right spot with one of those rubber balls, it will kill you. The nylon balls are a little more in speed. The same thing. They will penetrate a phone book. So we have a pistol, which whoever on night watch is wearing, and plus there's a rifle on the table. We use Tippmann TCR and Tippmann TIPX weapons. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Everybody carries a knife, One researcher up there, he actually carries 2 spears because of, he's a game warden, and he's allowed to carry a pistol. Most of these state parks, you can't carry that type of weapon, a real pistol. But you can carry, a deterrent weapon, non-lethal. They're a little expensive, but they're well worth it. If you get 4 or 5 coy wolves coming down a path or coming out on you, you got, the rifle, you'll get 20 round shots, and the pistol with 7 round clips, one in the chamber, so you get 8 rounds out of that. And, you hit a couple of them in the ass, and they'll move pretty quick. If they get any closer, then you just put the clip in with the nylon balls and do what you got to do. If they get any closer than that, I'll be in the truck.
I just stand out in my backyard and wait for him.
Yeah.
Because I sure as hell know Carl the alien isn't coming, man. Carl the alien ain't showing up.
Well, I've been asked that question so many times, and I always tell people, don't ever go out first of all, don't ever go out alone looking for anything like this, like these bipedals, because you don't know what you're going to get into. These weapons will stop a black bear. They're that powerful. I mean, they're 6.68 caliber round is a big round, and they come out with some force. But you know, I talked to guys. They said, "Well, we're going to just take a walk in the woods to see what we can find." I'm going like, "Well, do you have anything with you, to protect yourself?" And you know, most of them say they carry bear spray. Well, bear spray, certain bear sprays will work, certain ones don't. But then you got to remember that when you're shooting bear spray, that only goes 30 feet. The best one only goes 30 feet. A black bear can cover 50 feet in less than a second and a half. Better be pretty quick on the trigger and make sure you're downwind.
Or you just have a ghost in your yard like I do to keep the bears away.
That would do it.
That's what I do. I got to tell you this story. I told the audience this the other night when we had John Tenney on. So I think you will recall me telling you the story about the ghost in my yard and the black bear taking off out of my backyard, couldn't get out of my backyard fast enough.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when we got back to our home last week, our garbage days are on Thursdays. And we had to clean out our refrigerator because all our power due to the fires was off for 4 days. And thankfully I didn't have to replace my refrigerator or freezer. But I took all the garbage out, all the rotten food and milk and everything, and thankfully there wasn't too much in there because when Mrs. SOR goes away, she knows I'm going to eat out at a restaurant, so she usually fast food. I don't like to admit that, but I like burgers. And so she doesn't usually keep much food in the house. So anyways, we threw out all the food in the house and threw it in the garbage can. And so when I threw it in the garbage can, knowing it was 5 days until garbage day, I said to the ghost, Rick, in my yard, I said, Rick, I need a favor here. I said, I know there's during the fires with the evacuation, I said, I know there's the big black bear that's been hanging around this area. I said, I would appreciate if you could keep him out of the yard because I really don't want to have to clean up this mess. It's kind of gross. So if you please wouldn't mind, I would appreciate it. So a couple nights later, the little guy, his bedroom window is in the front of the house, and Jolene walks into his bedroom and looks out the window. And lo and behold, between my vehicle and the garbage can, she sees the shadow of a man standing there. And she says to me, do you know there's a man standing by our garbage can? And I said, good. I said, that's Rick. So I told her the story, and she's like, well, that's good. My garbage can was fine. And apparently this is one monster black bear that people who've been living in this area for years, have never seen a bear that big in our area.
Well, up in our research area, when we first went up there a year ago into the first research area and talking with the park ranger, I think 2 weeks before we got there, they took a 550-pound black bear off the mountain. That's a big black bear, 550-pounder.
Mm-hmm.
Normally, black bear in this state, 250, 300. It's a good-sized bear. 550, that's unreal.
Mm-hmm. Average size black bear around here about 400 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're big. They're big.
I want to, it's just like somebody said to me one time, if he sees a bear, he's going to outrun it. And I just looked at him and laughed. I said, yeah, you got about as much chance of seeing Jesus. That's not going to happen. You're not going to outrun a black bear.
No.
And then he says, well, if you run downhill, they'll fall. They'll trip. And I said, good luck with that one. And and he says, well, and, you can always lay down and play dead. And I says, well, yeah, you can lay down and eventually you'll be dead when it starts gnawing on you. But
that only works with the grizzlies around here, apparently.
Yeah, I always tell people, just be careful when you go out on these excursions or research into an area you're not familiar with, and always make sure you check the rules and regulations of the park you're in, because even if you're carrying a concealed permit weapon, you can still be arrested, because they say no firearms in a park. They mean no firearms. You can't carry a bow. You can't carry a crossbow. You can have a knife. You can have a spear. You can have non-lethal weapons. But even the non-lethal weapons, they're lethal. I mean, I don't know too many people that would like to get shot in the forehead with a .68 caliber solid fiberglass, hard as a rock ball, coming at them at 450 foot per second.
No, that's not fun. Getting back to the UFOs that people are seeing, Butch, is there any type of pattern to what they are seeing? Is it just triangles? Are they seeing different shapes? What are they looking like?
Well, up until beginning of this year, I would say 80% of the reports we were seeing were triangles or rectangles, and a lot of orbs, all sizes. And then in between, there were a couple just elongated tube-like objects, which were probably airplanes, because of the height they were at. And but it seems like the triangles haven't faded away, but there's just not as many reports of them as there are objects that are not easily defined. Some are round, some are oval, some are just the bright white lights. Of course, the orbs are still there, but not like they used to be. You would get those pretty much on a daily basis. Not really anymore. The bright white lights, some triangles, but mostly unidentifiable shapes: oblong, rectangular, oval looking. Now, oval, when they say oval, the first thing that comes into my mind would be saucer shaped. Because you're not looking at something in the sky where it's turned sideways, that you're seeing a cigar shape, you know what I mean? And the ones that some pilots have reported have been actually flat. Squares or rectangles, very large, very long, all black, no lighting, anything like that, and just come sailing by or flying overhead or near collisions. That's pretty much what they're seeing now.
Question coming from Tessa here for you, Butch, in our Spreaker chat room. Butch, I saw an alien orb which appeared to be filled with liquid fire. I was going out the door to get a closer look. I got a direct gut instinct, to go back inside. Are these orbs dangerous? Do they attack?
Never heard any reports of attacks. Coming close, and the interiors of a lot of people describe them as looking at them and seeing the insides looking like the old lava lamps, from the 60s. Something moving around inside, or electrical discharges inside, or like lightning inside the orb. A lot of reports like that. A lot of those reports are actually out in the Oregon, Washington State area.
Why would they be more on the West Coast?
Good question. That's a good question. But the sighting reports out in that area, like Washington State, Oregon, Northern California, they just seem to have an abundance of them. But then again, if you go down to the Texas area, basically the same thing. It just seemed like there's certain areas, but when you got to look at it this way: how many people live in Washington State and Oregon, and how much land in Washington State and Oregon is not occupied? Same thing in Texas. You have the big cities, you go outside the big cities, and you have a couple little towns here and there, but basically it's kind of looking like the Sonoran Desert out in Arizona. There's just not a lot of people there.
Oh, come up to BC, Butch. You want to see nobody? Come up to BC.
I may do that, but seriously. It seems like the least populated areas get the most reports, where you would think the most populated areas would get the most reports. They don't. It's the least populated areas. Like we'll get reports around the cities here in Pennsylvania, the bigger cities, but they don't match near what we get from places where there's very little population in the state. And I don't know what that has to do with that, people are working in the city, so they're not really looking at the skies, where people live out in the outskirts are usually retired or they're hunters or whatever, that they got their eyes to the skies. But
Butch, let me ask you this then. In regards to the sightings that are increasing of late right across the United States that you are getting with UFOcop.com, are alien abductions up as well?
They last year they went up 10%, and they went up, 8%. The year before that they went up 10%. Now, this year, it's not that they've changed all that much, but people aren't talking about them as much. Last year and the year before that, there was a lot of talking about alien abduction. There were a lot of websites. There were a lot of groups. And it's kind of, I'm not going to say it's fallen silent, but it's really pared down a lot. I mean, I think the last abduction report I read was about 5 months ago, and that was in the New Jersey area, near New York City. So, I don't know. I could never figure out, those type of reports, because, they're never in a, there's never like a flap. There's not like, 100 people are taken or something like that. And it's always something that happened a long time ago, when somebody was growing up or in a certain neighborhood or living in a certain area of the country, or it's a family thing where, families are been abducted for a long time through generations.
No, I understand what you're saying there, but we're not seeing an increase of new people coming out saying they've been abducted recently with this rash of sightings?
No. Mm-mm.
So then, when you don't see that happening, or you can't correlate the two, does that mean maybe a lot of the craft people are seeing are actually ours?
Yes, absolutely. 95 to 97% of the reports that people put in, as far as believing it's a UFO, are actually ours. It's that 5% or so, or 3%, 5%, where there's no way it could be ours. You know what I mean? It's an astronomer has seen it and photographed it, or it's picked up on some astro site, or NASA picked it up, or it was picked up on a star watch or photographed, or it's a multi-witness sighting. But there hasn't been any flaps where there are, multi-sightings at one time since 2008, I believe, was the last one. So the ones that are being seen are the ones that are very high in the sky. And when I say high in the sky, they almost look like a star, only they're moving. So when people say, well, it's just a shooting star, no, shooting stars don't act that way. When you see something that can cross horizon to horizon on a clear view, and it's zigzagging across the sky, or it stops and then goes the other way, or goes up or goes down, or continues on its way after it stops, or makes some kind of obvious nitwit maneuver, that's not ours. Nobody has anything like that. And now you got this group of individuals around the world right now, it seems, that are saying, well, there's bases on Mars, there's bases on the moon. We have an unknown secret space fleet that's out there protecting us against the aliens. This is such nonsense that, you know, I said to a friend of mine I was talking the other day about it, I said, I just want to walk up and listen to one of these guys, and when he's all done, just walk up and just slap him. You know, and say, get your head out of your butt. What are you doing? Secret space fleet. Like nobody would ever see, right?
It's real, man. You got to listen on Thursday night. I got Olaf Phillips coming on talking about the secret space program. It's real. It's real.
Oh, God.
We could have this debate, my friend. We could. Why have we not gone back to the moon? Why did Neil Armstrong say they are here, they are on the hill, and they are watching us?
Well, I mean, that stuff has been going on since 1947. You can... the one thing that always makes me crazy when I hear all this stuff, I always say, well, how do you prove that? I mean, just you may be telling me the truth, and you may be lying your ass off, but how do you prove it? And then they show you a patch, you know, like you put on the sleeve of your uniform that says, you know, the super duper secret space fleet, Marine One, or whatever the hell it's called. And he said, they're up there. And then you had, you know, guys that said, well, I've served up there for 20 years. He's been to Mars for 20 years. Okay. Here it is. Prove it. That's all I want. Just prove it. Just prove what you just said. Give me some kind of proof. Show me a Mars space rock. Show me a Martian. Show me your uniform. Tell me when you went up, where you left from, what kind of craft it was. I ain't buying it.
Well, it is hard to swallow when you got Randy Kramer saying that. I do understand. And maybe it's because I want to believe. You know, but I go back to Ben Rich, the former president of Lockheed Skunk Works, who stated that we have technology to get ET back home again.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So if we have that technology to get ET back home again, it's obviously up there flying somewhere.
Well, look how many secret projects that were flying for years, 30 years before the public ever knew about it. But the thing that kind of stops me there is, you know, you have so many amateur astronomers out there. Some of these guys got observatories in their backyards. As a matter of fact, there's one not too far from me. And, I mean, these guys are looking for that. They're looking for something odd, strange. I mean, they've seen the moon, they've seen Mars. You know, they can zoom in and take pictures and tell you what's on the planet. You know, they can find the old McDonald's wrapper laying there on Zeta Reticuli with the equipment they have, and you know, they don't see anything. They don't see any odd movements. There's no. I mean, they can pick out space junk and tell you what satellite it was that went broke 25 years ago and is just floating around up there and disintegrating. I'm sure.
I understand that, but I'm going to challenge you on something here. You believe the cops that saw the Phantom in Chicago. What's the difference? Where's the proof?
Well, the difference is that it wasn't just the cops. There was a group of people there also that stopped the cops and got the cops out of their car to look at it. And the cops made a report. And they were very adamant about the report they made. And the powers that be at the other end of the spectrum just said, no report. Which is like pretty much what any police department, they'll tell you what they want to tell you and you're not going to get any more. But it's just like multiple witness sightings. I give them the highest credibility. Because if you have a group of people here that see something and another group of people 25 mile away that see the same thing and another group of people 25 mile away that see the same thing, you can't say those three groups of people are lying because they don't even know they exist. Mm-hmm. You know? And single sightings are a little trickier because you're taking the word of one individual. Not saying he's lying or she's lying, just saying that you're just getting information from one person. But when you're getting, say, those 75 people telling you the same thing, that's a pretty believable scenario.
All right. Well, you do have one fan on Twitter, Mr. Skeptic, who goes, kudos to Butch for not swallowing secret space program BS. I think that's the first time he's given a compliment since he's been listening to this show. Well, you know what? I am going to give him some credit because he did win the tweet of the night the other night, but his snark has been pretty, C-plusious.
Well, look, when you're involved with this stuff, you can get a lot of people that will, and I've seen it over the 27, 28 years I'm doing this now, you'll get kudos from a lot of people when you're agreeing with them. And when you're not agreeing with them, you'll get a lot of backwash. But I look at it this way. Everybody has to put themselves in a frame of mind where they are either going to believe what they're told, or they're going to research what they're told, or they've seen what they're going to be told, and that's the way it is. If folks have a penchant for no matter what they see, it's a UFO, I pretty much try to ignore it. I'll take the report, but I'll ignore it because, they're copying somebody else's words from something somewhere, or they're giving me an identical report that happened maybe 5 or 6 years ago in pretty much the same area, or it was from the newspaper, or it's on the internet. And, you got to believe everything that's on the internet. That's all true. And, or I see, a bad YouTube or something like that. But I like healthy skepticism because I am a skeptical believer. You need to prove to me what you're saying.
Let's get back. Go ahead. Sorry, Butch.
No, I was just going to say, I've heard so many reports where they should start out with in a galaxy far, far away. Do you believe me, Butch? No.
Why not? We got about 3.5 minutes before we go to break. Let's get in a question from Milo here. How can beings survive L-turns and immeasurable speed takeoffs in UFOs? Wouldn't humans be crushed to death from the G-force?
There wouldn't be enough left to soak up in a sponge. I mean, you would have to have, and one of the guys from NASA put it really good one time. I can't remember his exact words, so I'm going to try to think about what he said and repeat it. You would have to control the gravity inside the craft and the gravity outside the craft at an exact level. One being over the other one would result in two things. Either the craft would be crushed or everybody inside would become jello. Best I can explain it.
Well, somehow they must be able to do it, considering they have been taking people up into space.
So the logical thing would be that they can correct or they can manipulate the gravity inside the craft. I mean, you never heard of anybody that was abducted saying, well, I got in the craft and they gave me an oxygen mask. Right? They get in the craft, it's roomy, it's nice, it's clean, a bunch of little guys running around here and there, a bunch of tall guys running around here and there. No weightlessness was ever discussed in the abduction scenario, ever. No lack of oxygen. So I would say if I had to take a running guess, it would be that they can control the climate and the atmosphere and the the G-forces and everything else involved inside that craft. Now, these crafts would have to be unbelievably sturdy, or they go from point 1 to point A to point B in a time slip, where all that stuff really isn't necessary. I mean, if I can say, well, I'll be up in British Columbia in your backyard in the next 2 minutes, and I show up, you know that there's no way possible that I could do that flying.
I look
right?
I look forward to that moment.
But but if there was some way to manipulate time and space, where I could say, okay, I'm going to go out and sit on my favorite lawn chair, and I'm going to close my eyes and do whatever I got to do, and then when I wake up or when I arrive, I'll be in Dave's backyard sitting on my lawn chair. So,
yeah, but you also have to realize too, Butch. I mean, to throw physics and mathematics out of the corner, humans are the only species out there that we know of that worry about time. And if they've been able to not worry about time on an alien level and don't care about time, therefore maybe their own science has been able to manipulate that.
Yeah, sure. Oh, I agree. I think you can. I mean, they proved it on paper. A couple different scientists over the years have proved it on paper that you can manipulate time and space to a point, but it gets to that point where basically you'd be vaporized, or you would never show up, or you would just be gone. So until they take it off of paper and make it a reality, I'll probably be long pushing up the dirt nap.
Well, like I said, my friend, if you get picked up, they better have a seat beside me, because you got to make a detour west.
I'm taking notes too.
I hope so.
And I want pictures.
Well, I can tell you this. I'm putting it out to the universe, because I am an abductee, I am a contactee, I am a radio frequency, according to Carl, for showing up at the window. But I can tell you this. I literally, as we go to break here, I literally have put it out to the universe that I am no longer accepting these nighttime abduction contact things. You want me? Come get me during the day. Keep me awake. I've earned that. I've earned that title. I've earned that spot. So if you're coming to get me, Carl, make it during the daytime so I can see this going on. I want a seat. I want a window seat. That's what I'm talking about. Strange Days with Butch Witkowski happens the first, or make that the last, Monday of every month. His next appearance will be on Monday, August 28th. Butch Witkowski's website, uf4cop.com. More of Strange Days with Butch Witkowski coming up on Spaced Out Radio right after this. We will be right back.
We're getting strange on Saturday nights. Hi there, this is Dave Cruz, and each Saturday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, I will take you on a tour of the weird and obtuse on Spaced Out Saturdays, from aliens to Sasquatch and every tinfoil hat in between. We got you covered. Join us at spacedoutradio.com for Spaced Out Saturdays. See you there.
Not ready for bed on Saturday night? Right after Spaced Out Saturdays, hop on over to S4 with Corey Ruiz and me, Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. With S4, there are no limits to what we try and uncover. From government conspiracies to helping clean up the paranormal, no topic is safe on S4. We get to the heart of the matter, of the subjects you want to learn more about. So tune in on S4 starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, only on spacedoutradio.com.
The SOR Sightlines is a place for you to find answers to your strange experiences. Hi there, this is Mike Schmidt. If you have had an encounter with ghosts, UFOs, Bigfoot, ETs, or anything else that doesn't make sense, head to spacedoutradio.com and file a Sightlines report. All information you give is 100% confidential, and I will personally help you find the answers you need. SOR Sightlines, your answers are a click away.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with UFO Cop. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
This is Eric Markham, news editor for the Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter Online. We have put together a great team of writers and journalists from all over the world to bring you top-quality paranormal stories From alien encounters to the latest conspiracies, you won't find any of that fake news here. True stories and top-notch reporting as we look to bring these experiences to the mainstream. The Encounter online, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Do you want to know the truth? Do UFOs exist? Are aliens real? Are the governments hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO seekers, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow along with us as we journey across the United States, visiting UFO hotspots and alien hotspots, trying to document the UFO phenomenon. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
Patrolling the Pacific Northwest, we are always on the lookout for the strange and unassuming stories that real people are experiencing. Hi, I'm Vincent Zunza from Pacific North Weird. Me and Alexandra Sullivan have teamed to bring to you those odd stories that never seem to make it into the mainstream. Stories so weird that will leave you scratching your head wondering, is this real? It's as real as it gets with Pacific North Weird. You can watch our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Become more intimate and interactive with Spaced Out Radio. Join our Space Travelers Club with your new membership. For $5 a month, we'll provide you with special access to the website, monthly prize draws from books to psychic readings, along with monthly newsletter, private interviews, and more. Sign up today to be part of Spaced Out Radio's experience.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
It's Cosmic Sundays with me, Elizabeth Anglin, in Cosmic Passport. Let me take you down a 3-hour spiritual journey where we will get into everything from ET contact to Psychic Sundays. It's a journey of listening and learning together with some of the best professionals in their fields. You can tune in to Cosmic Passport at spacedoutradio.com every Sunday starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, back to the program.
Child grew up too fast, went running wild. Now we don't know who to
Welcome back to the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. Tomorrow night on the program, we kick August off with Elizabeth April, all the way from Toronto, Ontario. The Spiritual You takes part the first Tuesday of every month. We love it when Elizabeth is around. She'll be with us for the first 2 hours tomorrow night at spacedoutradio.com. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are also live on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. Great to have you with us as well. We're live on KTLK, The Fringe FM, Renegade Talk Radio out of Las Vegas, and if you listen in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club, Gigantomachy. Gigantomachy is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets a password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow us on social media, you can do so on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio if you want to connect with me live during the show as well. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can find us on iHeartRadio in the United States, TuneIn, iTunes, and our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including joining the SOR Space Travelers Club for $5 a month. You can also shop at our Spaced Out Radio store, pick up a t-shirt, posters, stickers. You can read up on the Encounter online, listen to Bumblefoot, watch some Contact TV by Leslie Mitchell Clark or UFOseekers.com, Tim Doyle. Tonight we are talking with Butch Witkowski. Strange Days is a feature we do on this program, the final Monday of every month. Butch's website is uforcop.com. Butch, welcome back.
I'm here. Let's get her going.
All right, right on. Appreciate that.
Hey, there is one thing I wanted to say to the folks out there.
Yeah.
If there's anything that they kind of put in their little pipe and smoke it every now and then, is always demand evidence and think critically. Always.
Well, that's pretty deep. You got to go into more detail than just that.
Well, look, as we've all had reports and research that we've read or studied or whatever over the years, we know that when you start demanding evidence, either the story falls apart or you never hear from that individual again or whatever, or it gets changed drastically. And when you do get the evidence, you really need to think critically about what you've gotten. What have you been handed? What are you looking at? Is this something that could be just as fabricated as the story you got to begin with? Or is this something that's truly bizarre or unknown? And then if you are involved in any of the Fortean research, there are people you're going to know and learn to get information to and from. Whether it's a hair sample or it's a piece of metal found on a driveway or anything like that. But, a story is a story, and when you demand evidence and you get evidence, then you need to think critically about that evidence, what you did get. And then you've got to dissect that and discern that and see what that means. And 9 chances out of 10, you'll come up with an answer. But it's the people that don't ask for any evidence. They take everything for, well, he's a nice guy or she's a nice lady, and I don't think they'd lie to me. And I'm going like, okay, whatever. But, and then, you got the ones out there looking for that 15 minutes of fame and glory, or they post it on YouTube. There has never been a YouTube video that has ever been verified, ever. Not one. And there are people that do watch that. And the ones that they swear and declare are the real deal are the ones that are usually hoaxed the most. But I don't know. I think when you're taking a report, listening to a report or a story or whatever it is, Okay, now you told me all this. Now, where's your proof of what you just said? A lot of times, people say, well, I saw this thing. It was like right over that mountain there, and I saw it on such and such a date at such and such a time. And, a good researcher, first thing he does is he'll check the weather. And then you find out the ceiling was only 1,000 feet, so there's no way he saw anything over 1,000 feet. Or you check with the radar from the local airport, and they say, no, we didn't have nothing. And besides that, the ceiling was zero, and, we wouldn't have seen anything for 100 yards, let alone 5,000 to 10,000 feet. So there's all kinds of things you can do to simplify an investigation by just a phone call or two or an email. And but just demand the evidence. Don't take their word for it. Demand the evidence. That's not being nasty. That's not being out of line. If somebody tells me they saw something and they got a picture of it, okay, they're going to show me the picture. It's evidence, right? If, they show me the picture and I'm looking at a photograph of something taken through a window from the dining room, and I see this large, lit-up, multicolored light outside that window, and then I look and turn around and I see above the pool table in that room, there's a large, very large, oval-looking, shiny light with lots of lights in it. It's just reflection. Paranormal people get skunked all the time. When people run into a paranormal thing where they're doing an investigation, if they're using a flash, they have no idea what they're doing. They shouldn't even be doing what they're doing. You never use a flash, because so many photographs have been just shot apart because somebody used a flash and they got a reflection off a doorknob or a screw in a wall or a broken piece of glass on the floor. And the same thing with ufology, when they go outside and they start flashing pictures and they start getting all these wild-looking white lights and multicolored lights, and you go to look and see where they shot the picture from, and they're standing next to a garage that's got 4 large windows on the side of it, and they just flashed off a camera, and all that flashback just went into the lens, and now you got all these strange-looking things in the sky, which aren't really in the sky. They're in the windows. There's so many little techniques to learn, and some I learned by the hard way, but I know there's books out there that say how to investigate UFOs and how to investigate the paranormal and how to investigate this and how to investigate that. And I always tell people, look, hook yourself up with a good group, a well-known group, or a well-known researcher that's willing to share some information with you, and take it from there. Take 2 or 3, or I think there's like 4 books out now that'll tell you how to do all this stuff. And just don't waste your money. Spend your money on a good filter for your camera or something, because those books are worthless, and usually written by people that never investigated anything ever, which is another pet peeve of mine. But, okay, I ran it long enough.
Couple questions from the audience. Catherine is asking, Butch, do you believe these cube UFOs people are seeing are real or hoaxed?
No, I am going to say I think only because there are so many of them, and they are basically all the same size. Everybody describes them as about the size of a van, a van truck, or a little smaller. They always describe them as a cube, some multicolored, some just plain white, or, like a plain orange color. They're usually much lower in the sky. There's just too many of those reports from too many places, not only in the United States and Canada, but around the world. So there is something to those. And there's some very good pictures of cubes.
Follow-up question from Catherine. If you get evidence after critically thinking about it and you can't explain it, what's the next step for people, in your opinion? Who are they supposed to trust?
Well, like I said, it's very hard to say who do you trust. Depending on the area you live in. As let's say you live in an area where you don't have any UFO researchers, and it's a UFO case, and do a little homework, or listen to a station like this one or any other stations where they have, credible people on, and get a hold of them. I tell people all the time, you got a question and you need an answer, or you got something you need looked at, a photograph or whatever, hey, get on my website, send me an email, just, fire it off to me and I'll get right back to you. And, I do a lot of stuff for folks that I've never met. I don't even know where half of them live. And, good, bad, or indifferent, I tell them what it is or what it isn't. And a lot of times I've written back to people and said, look, I have no idea what you got here. It's not a bad photograph. I can't take it apart and say it's a hoax. So I'm just going to list it as a UAP. Unidentified aerial phenomenon.
Let's get to Ron's question here. Butch, in your opinion, what is the most active or most concerning events to you, paranormal, UFO, cryptid, or other?
In the paranormal, I'm going to say things that happen and are recorded, not only visually, but with sound, that there is no way and no explanation whatsoever. And I was involved in a case like that. And in ufology, some of the things that I've seen personally that ain't no way it's ours, and very unexplainable, no rhyme or reason to it. And one thing I've said from, I'm kind of getting proud of saying it, I have never seen an unidentified flying object by myself, ever. I've always been in the company of more than one person or a group of people, and everybody saw the same thing, so I know I'm not crazy. And in cryptozoology, that's kind of tough because I haven't had that experience yet. I'm looking for something that I know should not exist, but I find in background research going back many, many years that this creature has been seen and documented in the mid-1800s in the state. And people say, well, what do you think it is? And my best guess is that, and I've said this before on the show, it's a relic. It's been around for a very, very long time. What it is or where it comes from, I have no idea. My best bet is to capture it on film with cameras or video or infrared or thermal imaging. Once I have that, then it's a different story. Then I have something that I can put forward, on the website or in a paper, and say that, okay, here's where we were, here's what we did, and here's what we got. And we got it on infrared or we got it on thermal imaging. And in case nobody knows out there, nothing hides from thermal imaging. Nothing. If it's there, it'll be seen on thermal imaging. And I guess that's the best I can explain it.
Mm-hmm.
Are we still there?
Yes, yes, we are. And you know what? I had just a little bit of a technical glitch there. I apologize. But I had John Tenney on last week, and we were talking about whether or not there's other things out there that we haven't seen or experienced yet. Do you believe, Butch, that with everything people have seen, aliens, gargoyles, gnomes, goblins, fairies, whatever it may be, dogman, wolfman creatures, do you believe there are other creatures out there that just haven't been seen yet?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Let's just take the ocean. What is it? 3/4 of this planet is covered by water. And we've only explored, 1/10 of it? There could be all kind of stuff in the water. Look how many USOs are seen, underwater submerged vehicles, over time. And not only in this country. I mean, Shag Harbor, where the Canadian Navy and military was involved in Shag Harbor. They were certainly taking it serious. I mean, they had the Navy out, they had their Atlantic divers out, they had everybody out looking for that thing. There have been injuries caused by undersea objects. Boats hit, submarines hit. Russian Navy had a sub sideswiped with nothing else in the area within 500 or 600 miles. Photographs have been taken of things coming out of the water, going into the water. Lake Erie. Many reports up in Lake Erie of stuff going in and out of the lake. Robin Swope, a researcher in that area, I can't remember the name of his book offhand, but he wrote a book on that, the undersea stuff up in Lake Erie. Those reports, there's a lot of those reports all over the world. Now, it's funny because it's usually in places where there's large bodies of water, the oceans, of course, but big lakes. But when you get to places where there's, very few large lakes like South Africa and stuff like that, they don't see anything. But then you get to places like in Russia that are, like Novorossiysk and stuff like that, that are out in the middle of Siberian nowhere, and they may have 2 or 3, like Lake Baikal or something like that, and they get sightings all the time going in and out of the water. And there ain't too many people want to jump in the water and see what it is.
I'm curious to see what the next one will be, because I think that's what really interests me in regards to absolutely everything regarding this is what comes next. What are we going to see next? What's that next report? And I guess that's the beauty of this field.
All right. Well, look, the next report is out there right now with these flying whatever the heck they are. I mean, up until, 2 months ago, there was no reports like that. And now you got 26 of them. So, where'd they come from? Or what are they? And, and if they go away, it's just going to be a matter of time until something else pops up, like you said. Whether it's a flying or a crawling or a invisible or visible or whatever it is, somewhere. I mean, dogmen, that research has been around for a long time. Bipedal canine research has not. I mean, and why did they just show up in certain areas of my state? They don't go outside of the research loop. We have no reports outside of that loop. We have reports of dogmen-looking, four-legged things running around western Pennsylvania. But when you research back on the bipedal description, they go way back. They're all over the state. But since we gotten those ones starting in first one in 2014, we have gotten, I think we're at 29, 29, something like that. And that doesn't even count the ones we found in background research, which takes it up well over 50.
Mm-hmm. Let's get to Tripp's question here. He is asking, Butch, what do you think the chances of David Schock's Cube satellite of catching anything is? So let me explain if you didn't hear my show a week ago or a week and a half ago. David Schock works for a company called Fine Line Labs, and in early 2018 they are going to be launching the Cube satellite for disclosure, which is strictly a UFO hunting satellite that will take pictures every 5 seconds, up and down, since we can't go north, south, east, west. And it's going to be up there for about 3 months, about 178, 179 miles above, well below where the International Space Station flies in orbit. Do you think there's a good chance that they may get something?
Yeah, probably. I'm a great believer in using those types of cameras because I use them myself. I mean, I have cameras in the truck that will take a picture every 1 second, and that's what I'm hoping to catch my bipedal on. We're going to set up a series of those cameras in a research area, and they're just going to click away. They're very silent. They're infrared, day, night, waterproof. I can throw them in the water, ain't going to hurt them, and they'll run for 2 months before I have to do anything to them. They have 64 gig cards in them, and like I said, they can take a lot of pictures every 1 second. So whatever's moving around, or even if it just crosses in front of one of the cameras and goes from left to right or right to left or up or down, I'll have it on film. And they're basically doing the same thing. They're going to be setting up a camera trap, which is exactly what I'm doing. And, hey, they got a real good chance of getting something. That's why I'm hoping I'll get a real good chance of getting something, or I wouldn't invest all this money.
No, and I understand that. I mean, high-grade gear is great. But do you think if they do capture something, let's say 15 miles away, below them or above them, they catch a UFO mothership, do you see that photograph making it down?
Yeah, because they're probably going to have their own ground control. They're not going to be going through anybody else. So whatever's being taken there, just like the way my cameras are set up, I have 2 computers, one that's mounted in the truck and one that's outside the truck. And 2 of the cameras are hooked up wirelessly to the one computer, and the other 2 are hooked up wirelessly to the other computer. So there's no in-between, and they can do the same thing, and I'm sure that's what they're going to do. They're just going to have their own link from their satellite to whatever their station is, wherever their station is going to be. And they'll be either viewing it on real time, or they're going to be viewing it after the fact.
I get that, and I think it's a great idea. The one thing that I loved about Dave Schock when he was on the show, he says, if one of our photographs goes missing, everything is time-stamped. We are going to be able to know if a picture has been pulled. So if a picture gets pulled, we're ready to call them out. Is that not dangerous?
No, not if they do it publicly and loud. I mean, if they just do it between a couple people, it could get a little itchy. But if you're a loudmouth about it, no, nothing will happen. Because, you know, as a matter of fact, even that my camera's taking a picture a second, they're time-stamped. So you'll see, it'll say something like, it'll be the picture number, like 321, and it'll give the time. It'll be like 2:36 and 20 seconds, 2:36, 21 seconds, 2:36, 20. You know what I'm saying? So if something would be pulled out of there, I mean, it would, the credibility would be lost.
Cousin Gary in Edmonton is asking, how do you feel about the use of night vision cameras in investigation?
I use them all the time. I love them. You're getting to see stuff that you wouldn't see with your naked eye. Thermal imaging and night vision, if you're not using those in an investigation, now I'm talking about the type of investigation I'm doing. I wouldn't use thermal imaging to look at a UFO. I wouldn't use infrared to look at a UFO because you'd never see it. They're not made for that. But if I'm in the woods, or if I'm in a house, or if I'm in a parking lot, or whatever, and I'm looking for something that's giving off body heat or temperature, if I'm just looking for a temperature change, you know, thermal imaging is the way to go. If I'm looking for some type of movement, or I'm looking for some type of animal that's been rummaging through the woods or been seen in the area, I can get them either on infrared and our infrared cameras will do still shots and video. Our thermal imaging is the same way. It'll do still shots or video. And it'll give me the temperature of the object, center mass, and then I can take it, after I got that picture, I can take it and point it to a cold object or an object in the area and say, like, okay, this tree is 53 degrees, and that object that's on the film is 20 degrees. So right there I have proof of variance of difference. Or it could be hotter. It could be 98 degrees. Plus you get the shape. I mean, you can see what it is. I mean, when I was practicing, I would practice on my dogs. I have 2 dachshunds. I'd let them run loose dark in the house, and I'd pick them out, photograph them. I could tell which one was which. And that's on thermal imaging. So with thermal imaging and infrared, there's a lot you're going to see that you normally would never see. But be aware, when you go to buy that type of equipment, make sure that the type of equipment you're buying is good, because a lot of you can buy infrared cameras. Somebody buys a camera and they do the work themselves, and you'll pay just a couple $100 for it. But I will tell you that's junk. If you're going to go infrared, then you get a hold of a company like ATN, and ATN will either take one of your cameras and convert it for you, or they'll sell you a camera. You may pay $500, but you'll have a camera that'll do exactly what it's supposed to do. Where those other cameras that you buy on eBay for $200, they don't work worth a lick. And price-wise, a good ATN, our devices, we have ATN and we have FLIR. Our FLIR device was $1,990 or something like that. And our SPI thermal imager was $8,750.
That's a nice down payment on a mortgage.
Yeah.
Well, why not get the big toys? Big boys, big toys. You know what I'm saying?
Well, it's just like, when I started out, I had this little Dodge Caravan. Do you know how much stuff you can put in a little Dodge Caravan?
I do, actually. I do all too well.
Before it won't move because there's too much weight in it. And, we graduated over time. This is our 5th vehicle. And so now we have a 1-ton Ford Transit, 2016 Transit, medium roof so we can walk around inside. It's all shelved out and everything. But it's, look, I'm retired. I'm not scrapped for money or anything like that. I invested wisely over all the years, so it's a plus. But again, I got to check with the wife before I do anything stupid, or she'll cut my head off.
I know that feeling all too well. But that's okay. Let's get into some ghosts. You wanted to give an update on the ghosts that were on top of the barn the last time you were on the air with us.
Yeah. I've been down there twice since we talked last month. And the entities, or the distortions, whatever they are, have moved. They're in different locations, but they are still there. One has moved over to a large pile of dirt, and the other one has moved to the other end of the building, a long building, 300 foot, and it is standing at the corner of that building. Now, I have them on thermal imaging, and I have them on infrared, but one of the things I did this last time was I walked toward the one at the end of the building. And as I'm walking, I can look down at the screen of my thermal imager. And when I got within, I don't know, maybe 75, 80 feet, it was not there anymore. And it didn't disappear. It just wasn't there. It was like there, and then it wasn't there. So I backed up, started looking around again, and there it was up on the roof. So whatever this entity is, or this distortion, these two distortions are, and being the history of that area that goes way back, that was all Indian territory. There were no white men there at all, ever. until the French and Indian War. They started moving in, but up until that point, that was all Indians. They were all at war with each other. The Susquehannocks were a very warring tribe. I still think the property that was dug up to put up this new building got into some burial grounds, and these entities or distortions of what I'm seeing, and this is only my opinion, I have no proof of it, it's just opinion from research, that these are either guardians of that site or protectors of that site. Now, the owner of the property has recently talked about hearing noises at the pond, which is at the other side of the home. It's a very large farmhouse. On the other side of the pond, he's hearing a lot of noise, like people talking or music or dancing. Or now he's out in the middle of nowhere. This farm is not, like got a neighbor 20 feet away. I mean, the closest neighbor is probably half a mile away or better, and the guy's older than he is, so he said he ain't dancing around and singing. So what I'm going to do there is I'm going to put up a recorder, digital recorder, at the pond, and I'm going to show him how to change it out, change the card, and see what we can pick up. But when Lon and I were there, the one time when Lon and his son were with me, Lon heard what he thought was chanting off to his right. Now, off to his right would have been that pond. So I just think these are guardian spirits or guard spirits or some type of protectors for that property. And I do believe that when they dug up this huge amount of dirt, I mean, this mound of dirt has got to be 25, 30 feet high and 60, 80 feet long by maybe another 30 or 50 feet wide. I mean, it's a huge pile of dirt they dug up to level the property for this new building. The building still isn't complete. They've been running into all kind of problems, even getting the equipment there from California, to laying the concrete. There's always something pops up. But again, the biggest part of that whole thing, which just makes me think this, and makes me think I'm on the right track, is that we had a horrendous windstorm the day before we went there. And, I mean, buildings were knocked over, tractor trailers were turned upside down, silos were knocked over, barns were destroyed totally, lots of damage all around this guy. Rear of the property, both sides of the property, front of the property, across the road was destroyed. The pile of leaves that I walked through the very first time I was there, back in December, is still there. He didn't lose a shingle. He didn't even know there was a windstorm until he read the paper. And we took pictures of all the damage around him. The guy next door to him, or would be his next door neighbor, but the guy lives like half a mile away. He raises trees, from little things all the way up to big things that he sells. He had 50 adult trees ripped out of the ground. That pile of leaves is still there till this day. If I went down there right now and took a picture of those leaves, they're still there. That's through windstorm, this massive windstorm that came through and did all this property damage. That property wasn't even touched. Matter of fact, on his front porch, he had a stack of newspapers that he was in a box, sort of box, what do you want to call it, wrapped together, tied together. Those papers are still there. A windstorm that takes over, knocks down a cement silo, and it didn't touch newspapers or leaves across the street.
That's almost tornado-like a mini tornado.
Oh, it wreaked havoc. It did a lot of damage. I mean, when you take a tractor trailer load of grain, and I'm talking about a very large tractor trailer, and flip it upside down on its roof, and it's only like 300 yards from your house, and your house don't even lose a shingle, how does that happen? This property is being protected by something for some reason. And the only thing we can find when we go back in the history of the property is that it was definitely in the heart of Indian Territory. Even the name of the township that it sits in. The township is Cocalico, and in that particular language for that particular Susquehannock tribe, Cocalico meant beware of the snake.
Do you believe that there is some sort of angry spirit? Have you had any maybe intuitive people go check out the area to try and connect with whatever is there?
Oh yeah, they even did a remote viewing on the property, and the remote viewing. I can't really speak a whole lot to it because I don't understand it. I mean, I got the basics of it, but it's a group of people that do, they're given very little information, and then they come up with their own scenarios and their own little drawings and stuff. And the one researcher from Australia sent a drawing of from would have been if you were in the sky looking down on the property. Now, they were given no information about this property, no location, only what was there, what was happening, what had happened. And they drew the barn, the new barn, the house, the pond, and the driveway perfect. And then they have two X's, which they say were what they thought were the entities. They were off by about 6 feet on both of them.
And what did they describe these entities as?
They just said entities. What I've photographed and seen, to me, they're a distortion. They do have a difference in temperature. The one temperature I took one time, it was just, we were coming out of winter, and the ground was 53 degrees. And when I took the thermal imager and pointed it toward the one entity, he was 20 degrees colder. I had Lon stand out in front of me close to the barn, and I took his temperature, and he was 89 degrees on his, targeting his back. And then I went down to the other entity, and he was 25 degrees colder.
Were any of these intuitives able to describe what you're dealing with?
They pretty much all describe the same thing. I mean, they feel as though it's ancient, been around for a long, long time. It's protecting something. They call them protectors. They're guardians. They're guarding something. And if anything, what they'd be guarding in that area, that particular area of the county, which was all Indians. There were like 5 or 6 different tribes there, all at war with each other. They're probably guarding a burial site. Now, the one tribe, we don't know exactly which tribe was on that property, but the one tribe buried their dead. Susquehannock buried their dead. And the other tribe, which was Delaware, they cremated their dead. So either way, they go into the ground. The ones that were cremated, they would scatter the ashes over the ground. Now their history says that they would scatter the ashes over the area to protect the area from spirits, being that they were warriors and they died, but they were warriors. The warriors protect.
So you believe that maybe the spirits of First Nations people are the ones causing the havoc, maybe because they don't know what's happening on their former land?
Yeah. Or the former land which they were taking care of for many, many years. And there was nothing done to that property. The home was built in 1884, something like that. And then nothing happened to the property up until, or nothing was going on at that property in that field behind the home, until they dug it up for the new barn.
Right.
So for all those years it was dormant. It was probably fine, I mean, they didn't care that anybody was planting corn or whatever they were doing. But when they dug up all that dirt and they dug down that deep, they probably got it. Everybody's synopsis is that they got down into some place where they shouldn't have been. and that it's a very ancient site.
Do you happen to know, and this is a question out of Spreaker by one of our listeners, Believe, are there any sort of crystalline crashes or tunnels in the area?
No, but I will tell you this: if I take a EMF detector, and I go around the house, it's normal. If I go toward the old barn, it's normal. If I go up the driveway, it's normal. If I go at the new building, it raises up a little. The EMF picks up. When I go toward that dirt pile, it pins the needle every time.
Have you thought about, or maybe talked to a First Nations shaman or healer to come on into this area?
Yes, we did. We talked to 2 of them. They didn't want any parts of it.
Why is that?
I have no idea. But they were very adamant. They didn't want any part of it.
So do you believe you're dealing with tainted ground then?
Yes.
So what have you instructed the farmers to do?
Oh, nothing. I mean, they're doing their thing. I mean, they've been there for a long time. The family that owns that farm owns 4 or 5 farms down the road and 2 or 3 up the road. They pretty much own that whole area.
But they can't just give up their investment, though.
They're not going to give up anything. They're just going to go about their business. They have no, other than when they called us in originally for some strange things that happened at the barn, or behind the home, between the home and the barn. I don't see them really caring at all. Now, eventually, 1 or 2 things are going to happen. They'll either respread that dirt out over that field and fill in, slumpy spots that need filling in, and keep the dirt there. At which point, I don't think anything else will happen. If that dirt is removed and taken away somewhere, sold as topsoil or whatever to another farm, or moving it up the road to one of the other farms, I'm pretty sure that new venture or that new farm is going to fail. Something will happen that'll either be catastrophic, or like there'll be a fire, or the business will fail. It's a large chicken. They call it a chicken barn. What they do is really high-tech stuff in the front, and they take embryos, and they grow the embryos till they're chicks, and then they sell the chicks.
Mm-hmm.
So either the business will fail, or there'll be something catastrophic happens on the property. If whatever's there is removed from that spot. Now, if I go down, the dirt's missing, and the entities aren't there anymore, I don't think it's going to bode well. Now, that's just my opinion, and just from what I've read and who I've talked to and who've been involved over this whole thing since December. So we will see.
Are these spirits attacking the people who work there or live there?
Nope. They're just there. And when I describe them as a distortion, that's what they look like through a FLIR or through an image sensor. There's no shape to them. They're just there. It's be like if you drop a rock in a puddle. I mean, it's just there, and they're there, and they move. They're at different locations. The first 2 times we were down, or the first 2 times I was down, and the third time when Lon and his son were with me, they were in the same location, just a little bit moved to the left, looking at the barn on the roof. And the one that was on the ground, the first 2 times I was there, was now up on the roof. But there's no shape to them. I mean, they're not humanoid or animal looking or anything like that. It's just like I don't know, a blob, distorted blob, or if you ever see heat coming off a highway, real hot day, you know, you see that the distortion in the view out the windshield of your car. It looks like that, only they're condensed. They're not very wide and tall and long. It's a very condensed looking. If I had to give you a size, I would say maybe 3 foot by 3 foot wide, 4 foot tall. And the other one was a little taller, a little thinner. Might have been 2.5 foot wide, maybe 5 foot tall. But the coloring on the image sensing device and the thermal imager, they were exactly the same colors. So, and the difference was, the only difference between the two, besides size, a little bit of size, was the temperature.
Shar is asking in the Spreaker chat room what you mean about distortion.
It has no shape. It is like, did you ever see heat rising off a highway? And you see like the waves of heat coming up off a highway on a very hot day? That's what it looks like. Only it's not wide and tall. It's confined to that shape, that size that I just gave you. It's just distortion. It has there's no face, there's no arms, no legs. I don't know how else to explain it. It's just, it has no shape discernible of anything. It doesn't look animal, vegetable, mineral, human, nothing, alien, nothing like that. It's just, for lack of a better word, a blob of, it looks like a blob of energy that moves. And they move from location to location, which is what we've been documenting. But as to what they are, my best guess is they're guardians, or and they're ancient, very ancient. And everybody that's been involved, as far as the people that do the remote viewing, and the people that, you know, have all that knowledge and those traits to do that kind of stuff, seers and whatever you call them all, there's all kind of names, but every one of them said the same thing. And they're not even on the same continent, and they were coming up with the same answer. So, me, I'm just the investigator. I'm just trying to document the evidence. I have no idea what they are. Everything I get, I turn over to other folks to look at, because, you know, I don't know what I'm looking at. But nobody's had anything or any clues as to what they may be, with the exception of using the area for background, that it was very heavily Indian populated, First Nation populated. They were all at war with each other. These could be battlegrounds. They could, that farm could be on a battleground, or a battleground could be close. It could be a burial ground. It could be sacred ground that was used for ceremonies. There's a lot of things that it could be. And so right now I just write it off as, I'm not writing it off, but I mean, I just keep it in my head that whatever they are, they're meant to be there, or they'd be gone long already, or they wouldn't be there at all. But we got to remember that the original report was a UFO report, okay, which I did see. I went down, stood there in the snow like an idiot in my slippers. And the second time I got called down there, it was because the family was outside talking. They were just leaving the house. Some people came over to visit. They were outside saying goodbye. And they said they saw shadows of what they thought were human beings between the house and the barn, and that they were approaching them, almost trying to encircle them. And then the people like went back in the house and got in their cars and all that stuff. And when the guy looked out, they weren't there anymore. And when I went down, I didn't see anything. And then when I got my thermal imager out of the truck and walked around, then that's when I saw the two. And the guy was describing to me, he said he saw something up on the roof. I had seen it before he saw it, but I didn't want to tell him that because I didn't want him repeating what I saw. I said, well, what do you see? And he says, up on the roof, on the corner of the roof, it looks like there's something there. It's just, he says, it's just like shimmering. It's like I can see around it and through it. It's just like it's there, but it's not there. And I'm looking at the damn thing through my thermal imager. And then I didn't say anything. I just took the picture, and I said, do you see anything else? And I started moving around. He said, yeah, I'm seeing the same thing over by the door, that side door right in front of us. And I had already seen it on the imager and already took a picture of it. So it's there. Now, how he saw that, I didn't see it until I started really looking around to see what was wrong, what was not right when I was looking in the area. And I just saw that that edge of the roof was kind of not the way it should have been. It was like out of kilter, like somebody that wears bifocals and took the bifocals off and tried to read something really close up. You know what I'm saying? It just wasn't right. And then when I put the imager on it, I saw what it was. And then I saw the same thing at the door, and he verified it. So he was seeing the same thing I was. Now, I have tried to see it at later times that I've been down there without thermal imaging. Excuse me. I can't see it without thermal imaging anymore. I got to use a thermal imager.
So do you think it's camouflaging itself to you now?
I think so. And it might be just the weather, too, because when I first saw it, it was very cold. It was only like 28 degrees outside. That may have played into it, the weather. I don't know. I took that into consideration. But the second time I went down with Lon and them, I didn't see them. I didn't see any distortions. Everything looked kosher, but it was 53 degrees outside, so it was warmer. But when I caught them on the thermal imaging, they were still there, and they were much colder. They were in the 20, well, one was 20 degrees, and the other was 25 degrees colder than the 53. So whether it's camouflage or maybe they just don't like me, I don't know. But it is a bizarre case.
Come on, you're a pretty face. Why wouldn't they like you? Don't cut yourself short here.
Here, I can see when I pull in, the one looks at the other and goes, like, here goes that fat bastard.
Oh, funny. I feel like that every day. But that's just me. That's just me. My friend, we're about a minute away from wrapping things up here. I would love it if you told our audience how they can find you, get you information, and learn more about UFO4Cop.
Well, it's u4cop.com, UFORCOP.com. That takes to the website. Or they can reach me on Facebook under the UFO Research Center, Pennsylvania, or U4Cop also, or Butch Witkowski. I have 4. I have another page on there, which is the JAAR, the Journal for Abnormal Abduction Research page. So those pages are up. If it's something you need or something you might want to have me look through a database to see if something I can help you with, just go to the website or IM me on Facebook and give me a number to call, and I'll give you a call, and you can do what I can for you anyway.
Butch, thank you so much for being on Spaced Out Radio. We will talk to you again on Monday, August 28th. That'll be your next appearance. And I think you're going to try and bring Lon Strickler on with you as well.
Yes, I'm going to bring Lon with me.
Excellent. Excellent. The best-looking tag team in cryptid wrestling right there. Butch Witkowski, Lon Strickler, August 28th. Butch, you hold on. I'm going to wrap this thing up. If you're listening in on the Spaced Out Radio side, you hear Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background. A little brother is watching. Mr. Ron is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocks us in and out of every single show. We love having him as part of our team. Just listen to that guitar. savage, man. It's savage. Tomorrow night on the program, Elizabeth April joins us for her monthly feature, the first Tuesday of every month. We call it The Spiritual You. We're going to get in touch with ourselves, learn how you can learn more about you internally, spiritually, and so much more. 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern time at spacedoutradio.com. I want to say thank you to everyone taking part in the chat rooms tonight. It's going to be just fantastic to see you all again tomorrow. Do me a favor, continue to spread the word, either on your Facebook pages, on Twitter, hashtag Spaced Out Radio, because I love seeing you spread the show. Makes me feel like I'm doing something right around here. Because together, my friends, we own the night. I want to thank my team quickly. Everett Thiemer, Eric Markham of The Encounter Online, Kim Gandy, our Director of Business Management, Bob Davis, our great announcer, Catherine James, social media, Tim Doyle, Jolene Lammers on web design. Much love to them all. Mr. Bumblefoot, take us home.